Hi, welcome to the Dave Palmer Show. And today I have the host of the Just Get Started podcast, who is currently publishing a book on entrepreneurship and golf. Brian Ondrako, welcome to the Dave Palmer Show.
Hey, Dave. Great to chat with you today.
Great to have you as well, Brian. Great to have you. And golf is becoming a very favorite sport of mine. I was a national and, but track and field was my sport. I did the Olympic trials and stuff like that. So, that's what I did as a kid. Yeah. But obviously golf is an Olympic sport now as well. And obviously a very professional sport, very high money. But you play sport, obviously. You played this sport as a youngster, just as I did track as a youngster. Amongst other sports. So tell us your story, because you've got this book out called Luke's First Round of Golf. So we're going to get into that. But tell us your story and what can you tell me about, well, let's put it this way. I know that there are parallels between golf, entrepreneurship and life across the whole book. But what can you tell me what can golf teach you about life and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, and I can go on a few different roads. I'll kind of connect the dots here, but and it kind of leads to, one of the reasons I wrote this first children's book. But I'll start back. When I was fortunate to play golf. I started when I was 11 years old, and what I loved about the game was that it was on me. I played basketball and played some other sports here and there, but with golf, it was on me. And probably the same with track and field for you. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
If you didn't, I don't know what was your.
Well, it was eventually 800 meters was my main
800 meters.
So 400.
So that was your thing, right? If you didn't run 800 meters, you didn't win or you didn't compete. So that's what I love about golf, the individual nature of it. It was kind of like I had to perform and I had to do well. And I don't know why, it's just something around, and maybe it was a lot of just emotional intelligence that I didn't realize I had, but people told me I had later in life, was like being around like just integrity and professionalism and, all of those things that come with golf, being like, you're playing your own ball, you're keeping your own score. Like, if you have to take a penalty, you might be 50 yards right of your playing competitor, but being able to assess a penalty yourself, those type of things really intrigued me because I didn't see that with other sports. I saw that with like you in basketball, it goes out of bounds, you're pointing at the other player, like you're always doing these other things that don't seem as ethical.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the difference between doing track and athletic type, well, I say athletic type sports, like basketball, anywhere where you're running fast and jumping or whatever, soccer, and is that it's high adrenaline. I mean, there must be some kind of adrenaline going on in golf, but it's more about keeping calm, isn't it, and focused. And it's a long game. I mean, I forget about running a marathon, but it is lengthy. It's still a mental and physical sport in that sense, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And that's why it kind of is funny where I see people joke around about golf and like, oh, it's, people are out of shape playing it. Well, not really. Yes, you can make comparisons to some of the guys back in the day, but rarely are people out of shape that are playing at a top level nowadays. And because they understand to get to that next level now is a little different than before. But nonetheless, the mental capacity to play, if you've played a little bit, right? The mental capacity to get through 18 holes. And then imagine getting through I didn't play tournament golf a lot. I didn't play in the PGA Tour or anything like that. I was a PGA professional. I taught golf, I was in the business side. But playing 54, 72 hole tournaments, like you have to keep your mind focused that many days in a row for that extended period of time. It's a lot of work. And remember, it's on you. You can't take a play off. Unlike other sports where you might, maybe it's football where, well, you're in defense. Well, you're not on the field half the game or whatever. Yeah. Golf, you're on the field the whole time. You have to figure it out. So that's one of the challenges of it is the mental aspect of it. It is such a difficult game. Because the joke is you have to play your foul balls. Everyone's like baseball's so much harder. I know baseball's very hard to hit like a fastball, but you also can hit it 20 times to the right and still get another at bat. In golf, you hit it to the right, your score is going to add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, it depends what obstacles in the way as well. If it's a big lake or
exactly,
obviously a big bunker.
But going back to your question, I mean, I think that's where the parallels are. And whether folks play golf or not, it's fun to try. But really, the parallels are you have to overcome those obstacles, and you have to overcome them thoughtfully. And you have to think through. It's not just like I go up and just whack the ball. Like, I have to be thoughtful of, where do I want my next shot to go? And if I hit my next shot there, how is that going to position me for the next one? And you're thinking out ahead a little bit, but understanding that things don't work out always as they seem. Sometimes they work out worse. Sometimes you get lucky and they work out better. But it's the fact of, hey, sometimes you have to just, put it in position and figure out, hey, here's where I want to go, and then let the chips fall where they may. So I think that's a big parallel, I guess, to entrepreneurship. And we can go deeper in that if we want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get a lot of entrepreneurs both coming on the show, and obviously must have a lot of listeners as well, because as well as them sharing my show to their people, which I've seen, I know I do get a lot of listeners from that niche, as well as other niches like sports as well, because I do sports. I always get athletes and fitness coaches on here as well and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship is a big topic we can talk about, and especially the mindset side of it, and how golf can relate to that, or analogy can be an analogy. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, whether it's mindset or anything of that nature, I think the reality is that, we all get stuff thrown at us day in and day out, right? And it kind of goes back to like Stoic philosophy I've been following for a while. It's, things are going to happen, and it's really how you react to it is how you're going to live in the world, whether you're going to get pissed off about everything and be angry and what have you, or are you going to be able to kind of turn on its head and say, I'm not going to let this bother me. I'm going to take a different road, a different path, and ultimately, kind of cooler heads prevail. So, and that's been such a big thing in my life. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners, the same thing, is like, when you're at your most positive, you're most optimistic, you generally perform better, and you generally have an opportunity to be, quote unquote, whatever success is for you, right? Success is different for everyone. But being able to go down those paths are so much easier when you have a positive attitude versus just not thinking. Because there was a lot of years I didn't think I was good at anything, and those are some rough years, and put me in bad spots.
Especially going through school life, and then just leaving. The stuff that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses everywhere. And obviously, for us, soccer is a big sport, but obviously I didn't make the grade, I didn't have the skills, but track, I was one of the best in the country, for my age, so it was like, all right, that's my thing then. I'm going to have to do that. But if I had the skills in soccer, I'd be making some good money as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's look at the reality. Most people, when we say most people, it's 99.99% are not going to be the professional athlete. They're not going to be what they were dreaming of being when they grew up. And a lot of that is because society norms that are put into play. Right. And I went through the same thing. Right, Brian? No, you got to go to college. You got to get a job. You got to work your way up. You got to, save for retirement, all this BS that we're told. And I think it puts all of us in such a bad mindset, because now it's a rat race. Now we're thinking, oh no, we got to get the dollar. We got to get some sort of status, to be better than, we were growing up, or whatever other stuff, that's in our head. And I think that's where a lot of, at least what I'm doing now when I coach a lot of younger folks and stuff, is how to change that paradigm, and how to actually look at life in a different way, and look at it younger, to be able to hopefully make that shift sooner than a lot of us that, I don't know how old you are, but, I'm 38, and,
56.
Okay. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying I have anything figured out, but if you would at least say, hey, where's that change that happened in life? It was probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. I kind of call it my Renaissance period. I jokingly call it, but like, it took me until I was almost 30 years old to realize this. Like, if people can realize this at 16 or 18, wow, that could be such a change in their life in terms of more happiness and leading toward fulfillment,
Yeah. So tell me more about that. And like, it's kind of like an epiphany for you. It sounded like at 30, but there's something people could do if the younger listeners are listening to this. What could they install? What you learned that you could have done at a younger age?
I think a lot of it is all about decisions, right? We all make decisions. And are you making decisions for money? Listen, money is needed. We both know that, right? Let's not, dance around that. You need to pay certain bills, or you need to do certain things if you have a family, right? But the reality is that we don't need millions or billions of dollars potentially, right? If you want to get that, go ahead. That's, whatever floats your boat. But for the most of us, right, it's how do we have financial freedom to be able to wake up and do what we want to do? Well, you can make decisions today to start leading to that path. You might not be there tomorrow or in 5 or 10 years, maybe. But if you make that at a younger age, I feel you're going to now at least be way happier when you wake up in the morning. And what happens when you're happier? You want to go work out, right? You get more energy that way. You're going to probably want to eat healthier because you want that energy to be able to do those things. And all of a sudden there's this shift that happens where it's not just one thing in your life is good. Now there's a lot of things. Well, now take it from the other end. What happens when you're pissed off and you're not happy? You don't work out as much because you're depressed, right? You maybe don't eat as healthy because, again, that food makes you feel, and all of a sudden there's a spiral the other direction. So I think if we start making better decisions earlier on that lead to happiness, now they might be difficult decisions because most people aren't doing them. Ultimately, that could lead us down a better path. Again, it took me a long time to figure that out, but I at least feel that I'm at least on some sort of a better path now than I was, you know, like I said, 9, 10, 11 years ago when I was very complacent. I was in a ton of debt, all these things that were like spiraling downward. I'm like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And you kind of wake up one day and it's like, oh, wait a minute, I can make this change. I can make the decision to change. I just have to be willing to go through the hard work to actually do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, we're going to come on to your book in a minute. So tell us your story then, how you got into golf, because I know your father was an influence there, and you're from where, New York, is it? So, or near there, a town or something. So I was reading your bio. Tell us your story then, and how you led up to that from there. So your journey there to where you got to 38 and realized, where you are now, really,
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up in upstate New York, small town. The more I look back, I think the more the years go on, it was a better upbringing than I give myself credit for. Maybe being a middle child and feeling like I was, no attention and those type of things.
I was a middle child as well.
There you go. So there's probably some parallels there.
I don't think about it, I suppose, but it's only when someone said, "Oh, you're a middle child," that means I thought, "Whoa, okay." But yeah, anyway, go on.
Well, for a long time though, that was how I made a lot of decisions on. And again, you think about, we all have these experiences throughout life. Not to go down this rabbit hole, but I think that was part of, by the way, childhood is such a big thing for anyone to do out there. If I would encourage the listeners, if they haven't done this, if you are struggling with anything, go back and look at childhood and really become self-aware of where your quote unquote pitfalls are. Because what you find is that a lot of them come from childhood. I figured this out. I was I needed attention. I was very needy. And I figured this out in adulthood of how I was with the relationships and those type of things. And it was when I finally started to realize that and change that, like, hey, self-love was really important. Like, I had to love Brian first before I could love anyone else. And I didn't realize that. Those are the type of things where childhood, I think, really impacts us. And if we don't look at them, man, we could waste our whole life kind of realize, like, why are things not working out? And it's because we just didn't do our deep dive into things we didn't realize. They were kind of just innate in us that we had growing up. Anyways, that's a long tangent, but yeah, grew up in upstate New York, middle-class family, just did a lot of random stuff. But a couple big keys in childhood that I think are important is that I always had good work ethic that I learned from delivering. I started working when I was 11 years old. I was delivering this back in the days. Your younger
like paper
listeners,
errands and stuff like that.
That's right. Your younger listeners don't realize that people used to deliver, hard copy paper in the mornings. But yeah, I used to wake up 5:30 a.m. and every single day from 11 until I was 17. I did it for 6 years, and I had a few jobs in between there as well. On top of that, like sometimes I had 2 jobs. But the reason I mentioned that is I didn't realize, again, these things, all these experiences I had really bottled up inside me. And it almost, basic to your point of like, hey, how did this kind of come out? They kind of just burst. Again, when I was like 29, 30, what happened in my 20s, I think we all go through this, is you just get complacent. You're going out, you're partying, you're having fun, you're enjoying life, you're learning a lot. You're pretty stupid, so you're just learning so much, about life and just making really poor decisions on things. And what I realized though, I got later in my 20s and I said, what am I doing? I said, here I am. I had a lot of these ambitions when I was a kid. I was very curious. I had a lot of work ethic. And now I feel like I'm just kind of, shipping it in every day. Like, I feel like I'm not putting in the time I should be. I feel like I'm not learning as much. And, and it was just certain things that kind of click for me. And for you or for your listeners, it may be other stuff. For me, it was just like, why am I in like $60,000 of debt? Like, how did that happen? How the heck did I get to this point? Why am I not making a certain amount of money at this point in my career, this point out of college and stuff? Like, was it because of someone else or was it actually because of me? And being able to start being more accountable, and again, putting it on myself, standing in the mirror and saying, Brian, you effed up, you got to make better decisions. Ultimately, that was the shift. That really was the shift for me. So started to be able to pay down debt, started to make better choices on career, started to actually say, how am I going to live happier? And those decisions slow rolled into kind of what I'm doing today. So that was a lot of randomness there, but the reality is that we all have these things in life. At some point, we have to stop ourselves and kind of hit the brakes and just kind of have these checkpoints to say, hey, are we at where we want? And if we're not, that's okay. I mean, it's okay if we're not. I think one of the hardest things I found, and this is we're talking with a lot of people, is that we don't get to a point where we have that tough talk with ourselves. We kind of glaze over it and we're like, yeah, I think we'll be better tomorrow, and we move on. But I think when we really sit deep and have that really tough discussion with ourselves, man, that could change a lot of things going forward for us in the better. It might be hard, as I mentioned earlier, out of the gate, but down the road, it could be a lot better. So,
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to your book then. Luke's first round of golf. Before you tell us what the book's about and what's in it, and obviously not everything because you want people to go and buy it, but why did you write the book in the first place?
well, this is a fun little children's book. It's kind of with my upbringing of reading Dr. Seuss as a kid, and also love listening to 90s rap music like Eminem and DMX and, Tupac and them. I kind of love rhyming. But this book is more, it's about getting started, obviously, because that's my mission, right? Is to help people get started on their journey.
It's the name of your podcast as well.
Name of the podcast, yeah, Just Get Started. And so this book is a part of a series of children's books I'm writing in the Just Get Started series. This one's so important because people laugh when I say this probably, but like I started writing this book 9 years ago. Doesn't that seem crazy? 9 years ago for like a small little children's book.
It's
but
amazing.
that's I think where the story, why it's important and why I love sharing it, is that I had so much fear and uncertainty and so much anxiety, what people thought about me and could I do this and all this crap, where I started writing the book with my, I have a almost 9-year-old now. And when he was born, I started writing this book. And because I was like, hey, how cool would it be? I started playing golf when I was 11. It was it was one of those random things. Now, my uncle used to be or still is a PGA professional and owns his own, golf course. But I didn't really know he played golf, and he played in the PGA Tour for a handful of years and stuff. And I didn't know how good he was as a player until I got in my teenage years. But I started playing golf on a whim because my brother played with a couple of his friends and his friend's dad, and he had fun. I said, hey, can I go out next time with you? Because he was my big brother and I wanted to, do what he was doing. And that's how I learned to play. That's how I got into golf. So I was like, my dad never played or anything like that. We actually got him into the game, ironically. But I said, how cool would be is like my son to learn the game of golf and us to actually get out and play golf for the first time. And that's why it's titled Luke's First Round of Golf. It's a play on that relationship with a father and son and getting started with the game. But anyways, I started the book and I had probably, 40, 50% of it written, something like that in 2012. And then I shelved it. I literally I shelved it for almost 7 years Could you believe that? It's just thinking back, it sounds so dumb now. It's like 7 years you sat on this. And it was just because I didn't believe in myself that I could write a children's book. I'm like, who do you think you almost failed English in high school? Like, what do you think? You can write a book, you know? And,
So everyone's got a good book in them though. So that's what
but I
motivates you.
think, yeah. And I think the moral of the story here is that whatever you want to do, you could do. Don't let anyone tell you can't, because it's a bunch of BS. And I'm happy to say I'm already illustrating my second book. I already have my second children's book written. It'll be out this fall. It's on mindset and happiness, and how important the brain is. And it's a fun little book, again. But I think this one's gonna be really impactful. But again, I'm already now. I'm like, great. I shipped that first one. Now I'm moving on, and let's keep going with this, because I really enjoy writing. I found, obviously I enjoy the podcasting as well, the audio form, but I really enjoy writing. I don't know why. And that's why I blog and do other stuff. So yeah, the book was a really interesting journey. And gosh, did I learn a lot in those 9 years. I've had a lot of life changes, but it's one of those things that you have to put the work out, as Seth Godin says. You have to ship your work, and ultimately you never know what could happen because of it.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah.
And you also have a podcast, and you coach as well. I think I saw somewhere you were a business coach as well, which is kind of like your podcast is in the business category. So tell us a little bit more about that before we round off the show.
Yeah, I've been doing the podcast for 3.5 years now. So basically at episode 160. I don't have as many as you. But
I didn't get much sleep. I've been doing a lot.
But similar though, and I think you'd probably agree, is the consistency is so important, right? Is continually to figure out, okay, I got to keep moving forward, but how do I keep getting better? How do I make the show more impactful to the listeners, right? Where's the impact I'm having? So yeah, I started the show in 2017, but similar to the book, it was one of those, I think it was one of those catalysts for me to pick the book back up, because I wanted to start the podcast in 2015 and I didn't do it for about 2 years. I kind of made excuses, similar reasons why I didn't progress with the book. But eventually I was building up enough courage and enough confidence in myself that I was able to start. And that's actually why it's called Just Get Started, because I said, man, there's got to be so many people just like me that want to do something. It could be as small as starting a garden, or, they want to lose a few pounds for the summer, whatever it is, right? Get healthy. But they're just so scared to do it for whatever reason, or maybe they don't have the motivation or the education or whatever it ends up being. So I said, man, let's start this podcast and let's interview great people that are doing this, and let's have them share their story. And ultimately here we are, 3.5 years later, and it's still going. So yeah, it's been fun. And I do some coaching, and we'll do more of that. And by the way, I want to be very clear with folks. I still work a full-time job.
Yeah. What do you do anyway?
I'm in software sales.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I say that's important is I'm still progressing in that, and I may stay in that for a while. I have no idea what the future holds.
No, absolutely.
But I'm able to perform that job very well, and I enjoy it. It's a great company, and enjoy what I'm doing. But at the same time, I've found ways to prioritize the podcast and the book writing, and obviously
and the coaching as well.
Yeah, and not to mention, as I said, I have an almost 9-year-old. When he's with me, I'm spending as much time as I can with him. Phones are down most of the time. Like, even though he wants to watch his iPad all the time, I try to temper that as much as possible. But like, I think it's really important for us to understand is whatever you're doing, there's no right or wrong way. No one has to quit their job tomorrow to find this new path. It's being able to prioritize, start cutting out the bad. We do this with food, right? And this from your track and field days and stuff that. If you were an athlete, you cut out the bad stuff and you start putting in the good stuff. So what is that? Well, cut out the stuff that's spending a lot of the wasted energy and putting good stuff in your life. And ultimately you start changing the prioritization of things. And that's how happiness starts to begin,
Yeah. That's a great thing about sports. You can go down a personal development route just by sheer being kind of using yourself as a guinea pig physically and mentally, you know. So even boxers, you know, they kind of like gone down a wrong road and all of a sudden, oh, you know, I had mental health issues. Well, there is like, we've got someone called Fury is going to have a big fight with another British boxer. He had mental health issues and then he's kind of developed himself and got himself back there again after 2 years out. But lots of people that, you know, that happens in life as well. And I'm sure in golf, well, I don't want to mention Tiger Woods, but, you know, lots of people have their ups and downs in life and in sport. The sport shapes you, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, look at Tiger as a great example. I mean, look how Tiger and I've probably been, you know, what is it called? Like an apologist. Like I've been on the Tiger train since, you know, 1996, really.
Yeah. 97 for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Since the USAM. Actually, I had Steve Scott on, who he played in the USAM, and he actually just launched his book on that match. And anyways, the reason I mentioned that is that was actually one of those impactful, the U.S. Amateur Championship back in '96. And then I was fortunate, you know, the BC Open, they don't play it anymore. It's now the Dick's Sporting Goods Open on the Champions Tour. But the BC Open used to be a PGA Tour event in my hometown at Endicott, New York. So I actually got to see Tiger 3 weeks later, or 4 weeks later, something like that, you know, within a month later or so, a month and a half, when it was his third PGA Tour stop as a professional. So he turned pro right after the USAM, and then he got sponsors exemption. So he played the BC Open. I remember I have a couple really cool stories of meeting him and watching him play and stuff like that in '96. But anyways, I say that because I've seen Tiger and I've watched him so much change as a person from the outside. I don't know him personally, but you can see him change of how he interacts with people now, how he is with the media. Like, he had to go through a lot of crap, and rightfully so for the decisions.
He did get a bit greedy, did he? Well, no, I shouldn't say like that, but no, I mean, obviously it's wrong with what happened. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, he's
a role model.
He had a lot of, but it's one of those things where, hey, we all make mistakes.
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
not to that extent, but we all make mistakes.
Yeah, but the biggest moment was winning that Masters. That, you know, was it 2-3 years ago? 2 years. Yeah, that's the biggest comeback. One of the biggest comeback they talk about, isn't it? Really, but
well, forget about the adultery and all this other stuff he did.
Yeah.
The fact that he wasn't going to play golf.
Well, that's right.
there was rumors 2 years prior that he literally told someone at the Masters dinner 2 years prior that he didn't think he was ever going to compete again.
I think that's because of his back injury then at that time.
Exactly.
And of course now he's back on that same conversation now. But actually he's taken it well, isn't he now? I think he's probably had those knocks and thought, you know what? This is a way to really overcome it, you know?
Yeah. And he's had his chance. Obviously he just, you know, evaded death a few months ago.
Yeah, that's
obviously
what I mean.
Getting into that accident and stuff. And, you know, I think he's in good spirit. I'm hoping he's in a comeback. You know, I hope he plays forever because I love watching him and
he's got the mindset to do that. Let's put it that way.
He is. He's you know, he's like probably both athletes, just stubborn. Like you want to just keep winning and you want to keep getting out there. But yeah, I love watching him. But I think he is great if you look at it from that lens of like someone that gets knocked down and keeps coming back. What are they doing? How are they performing? How are they looking at life? You know, I think there's a great story there if you really pull back the layers.
Absolutely. Well, with all the work you've done, obviously, and bringing the parallels of golf, entrepreneurship, and life together, what would you say, you know, to anyone out there listening? What kind of, you know, to put that all in one sentence or whatever? How would you sort of give some advice in terms of bringing those parallels together?
You know, there's so many things you can say, and I'm sure a lot have been said.
Yeah,
but,
right, yeah.
But the one thing I guess I'd put a stamp on is that we don't know how much time we have.
Yeah.
Could be tomorrow, could be next week, could be 50 years from now.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if we have the thought process of what are the small, I'm big on the incremental changes. You know, you're not going, you know, I'm reading actually, I think I wish I read this book 10 years ago, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. And I've been following him for a while now. I finally decided to read the book. But, you know, it's interesting. I was just reading this the other night and he was talking about, and I'll give him credit on it, but just like you have to keep putting in the work just every day. Like if you want to write every day, or if you're an artist, create every day just a little bit. And all of a sudden that starts building into something bigger. And again, you know this, or I know this with a podcast. Obviously with some of the writing I'm doing now is you have to put the work in every day.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen in 3 months or a year or whatever, but don't worry about that. It's being able to put the time in now to ultimately reap the benefits, because even yourself would probably agree, you don't know what's going to happen with a podcast when you start it. You have no idea.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You don't know what's going to happen at 6. You have no idea. But all of a sudden, if you put the time in, you could potentially utilize that to, again, build a business out of, or network and meet people, or you don't know. But you got to start today, and you just got to put some time in and start to prioritize, as I mentioned earlier. And all of a sudden, things start changing. You start meeting different people that you never would have met. Opportunities start opening up. And life changes for you in a better way if you actually have that optimistic view on it. So that's what I would say. Start today, put in a little work. Don't beat yourself up over it, but start to think a little bit differently about your daily interactions and what you're doing, and start to put some new things into it that could ultimately, make you happier and lead to more fulfillment.
Yeah. I'll probably put on a spot a bit also, just saying, to give that one advice. Of course, there is many different, and you get so many quotes out there. There's so many people.
No, I know. Well, it's funny because I want to say
just one
50
example
things.
of what. Exactly.
I want to say 50 things, but no,
I should have said, give us one example from the book that you could give it, out there. Just give, throw a quote out there, that kind of thing.
But Dave, you're right. If I could mention that, is that there is a lot of things that could be said.
Yeah.
And there is so much advice out there and so much insight, and you could read all day, every day. You can listen to every episode of your podcast. I want to say, I'm going to listen to all 300 plus episodes, or whatever. Yeah. But the reality is you have to start. You have to put the work in. No one got anywhere by just sitting around and reading, or sitting around and watching videos, or it's not that that's not important. That's how I started out. But at some point you have to convince yourself that you could do better than you're doing now. There's things you want to do that are different than you're doing now. But the only way to do it is go out and try and experiment and test and taste and create. And it might suck, right? Who knows, right? It might be horrible. But at least you got out there and you tried. And then you ultimately said, let me make a left turn here because this is better for me. Or I've changed my format of my podcast 3 or 4 times. I asked so many different questions than I did at the beginning, right? The way I interact with guests are different. Like the way I set up guests, the way I get information from them so I can promote it better. All these things are different than it was 3.5 years ago. But you learn and you expand and you change over time. But I never would have had that chance if I didn't put the first episode out and then put the second one out, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so forget about all the crap that's out there, what people are saying, why your best friend doesn't think that you're good enough, or why you're doing, because I've had all that. I've had people that said, Brian, why are you starting a podcast? That's stupid. Or wait, you're writing a children's book. Like, I've had all that. And we have those. We all have those. Everyone has those stories. Yeah. And for so long, I let those dictate how I live my life. And no longer am I doing that. And that's made all the difference.
Yeah. Well, Brian, it's been really great you came on my podcast and sharing out. I think it's a great thing you've done the children's book. It's a very powerful thing. I've got another children's book writer coming on my show actually tomorrow actually, but
nice.
So that'll be coming out this week together with your episode. So I admire that. Anyone that writes a book really, but obviously children's book is a quite a powerful thing to do, for kids and for an adult to do it as well. So no, it's a good thing out there. Can you tell anyone where they can actually find your work and also find out more about you and what you do?
Yeah, my best place is probably my website, brianondrako.com, BrianOndrako.com. And that's where I have my books, links out to there. I write a blog 3 times a week. I actually have something cool I learned from Derek Sivers, the Now page. So like every 3 months, I kind of update what's going on in my world. And so that's kind of a way to keep, kind of keep tabs. If you, at least it's for my mom, I joke, where she can at least keep up to date if I'm not keeping her up to date. But yeah, that's probably the best spot. And then, I spend time on social media, not as much as I used to, though. I'm trying to do some different things to get away from it a little bit more, but on Instagram and Twitter and those type of things. And yeah, if you want, like I said, the book obviously out now, Luke's First Round of Golf. It's for the 8 and under crowd. It's a fun book. But yeah, that's on Amazon. You can search there or link off through my website. But yeah, I appreciate any support from folks, and hopefully it'll be impactful for them. Maybe get their young, boy and girl, maybe interested in golf. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Brian, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and it's been a great conversation with you today. And I'm sure people will pick up always from any guest. There's something new they'll pick up all the time. That's why we do these podcasts, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah,
and why people listen to them. It's been so popular now, and people, do want to grow. And podcast is, a good medium for people now these days. So Brian, thanks a lot for coming on our show and sharing all this today.
A pleasure, man. Nice to meet you. Nice to connect.